Saw dudes, I'm sorry if you're tired of seeing Banner of War plus Stronghold builds, but it's an addiction that I can't shake. The aspect is too good to put down and I found another use for it. Worldline Zero has some of the highest burst DPS of all sorts, something that the Lament lacks. Plus its heavy attack covers a much wider area, can hit multiple targets, and can be chained for an additional heavy swing. Since it instantly kills so many adds, it quickly stacks Banner of War to bring the pain instantly. This is one of my more goofy builds, but it can really show off. Let's get started. Blade Fury is the only super we can use, but it's good at clearing crowds and locking down majors. I like to use it as a backup form of DPS when my sword is out of ammo. The barricade is up to preference, but I chose to run Rally Barricade this time around. I just prefer to have the lower cooldown when compared to Towering Barricade. Frenzy Blade severs enemies, reducing their outgoing damage by 40%. This is great for locking up enemies for sword kills. Shackle Grenade is mandatory on the build for keeping enemies in place. Heavy sword swings can miss moving targets, so this helps with the god-awful tracking. Aspects for the build are Banner of War and Into the Fray, but you probably knew that much. Banner of War is activated when we kill an enemy with a sword, glaive, finisher, or melee attack. The banner sends out healing pulses periodically, with the frequency increasing with the amount of kills achieved after activation. It also buffs melee, glaive, and sword damage. Into the Fray causes Destroy Tingles to release 3 pulses that apply Woven Mail and heal allies for 10 HP each. The same effect can be achieved by casting Blade Fury. While Woven Mail is active, our melee regeneration rate is increased by 400%. For the Fragments, I went with Thread of Continuity, Generation, Mind, and Transmutation. Continuity causes Strand debuffs to generally last 50% longer. Generation grants grenade energy for each damage instance on enemies. Mind causes kills against enemies affected by suspension to grant class ability energy based on enemy rank. And last but not least, Thread of Generation causes weapon kills to spawn tangles while Woven Mail is active. The armor for the time traveling swordsman is as follows. Starting with the helmet, I used Arc Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder, and Heavy Ammo Scout. With Stronghold, I slotted Heavy Handed, Impact Induction, and Bolstering Detonation. On the chest plate were melee damage resistance and 2 copies of Loosened Blades. For the legs, I ran Recuperation and 2 copies of Arc Weapon Surge. Finally, on the mark were Time Dilation, Bomber, and Outreach. I would recommend maxing out Resilience and Discipline. 100 Resilience makes it extremely hard to kill in combination with Woven Mail and the Infinite Sword Guard. It's not required, but you'll be able to tank plenty of hits in Grandmaster content. Discipline is essential to the build. Shackle Grenades provide much needed crowd control and make champions much easier to take down. I would not recommend dipping below 70 Discipline for the build. If you're having trouble keeping the raw stat number up, consider using a Font of Focus mod on the arms. If you like time traveling with a sword, consider subscribing. I heard it'll rewrite history. Today's build only has one weapon loadout, but that's because Worldline Zero is the only sword that we will use. I will still provide alternative weapons for the other 2 slots. Weapon loadout 1 uses Rufus's Fury, Iterative Loop, and Worldline Zero. Rufus's Fury provides easy grenade regeneration, which is the only pain point of the build. A Demolitionist and Hatchling roll helps a lot and covers mid-range gunfights. This weapon will be used against red bars and is best used behind coverage to regenerate ability energy. Since it is a Strand weapon, you can switch Heavy Ammo Scout for Harmonic Siphon to generate more orbs. If you aren't concerned about that and prefer a playstyle akin to Run and Gun, you can use Submission. Submission can be crafted with Subsistence and Frenzy for a really easy experience. However, I realized both of these guns require raids, so use anything you like. Iterative Loop is my preferred weapon since it can do ad clear and some DPS. Lead from Gold enhances the ammo economy of the weapon so that it almost always has ammo. Bullshot applies jolt to enemies, adding to DPS numbers and stunning overload champions. It is effortless to use and relatively easy to farm ever since the changes to Neomuna Red Border farming. As you've seen in the footage, it can melt yellow and orange bars with very little setup. If you don't really care about additional DPS and would rather focus on plowing through crowds, there's always Forbearance. The staple role of Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction chews enemies up. I mean, there's really not much to say since the gun speaks for itself. I would recommend using this if you're confident that the rest of your fire team can melt priority targets quickly. Now we come to the star of the show, Worldline Zero. After sprinting for 1 second, the sword readies its unique heavy attack called Tesseract. Activating a heavy attack while it is ready teleports us forward, dealing damage 5 times to enemies within 2 meters of the teleport path. This is great for ad clear and general champion usage. The only issue is the need to sprint prior to attacking, which is partially fixed with the Catalyst. The Catalyst brings down the time needed to be in a sprint to half a second, which helps a bit. That's why I felt that the Shackle Grenade is so necessary. The Lament beats out Worldline Zero in total damage and healing, but it loses in the ad clear department. The Gameloop follows that of other Stronghold builds. Block using Worldline Zero to get perfect guard stacks and use light attacks to proc Banner of War in Restoration ×2. You can continue to kill adds with light attacks or switch to other weapons to save ammo. When a breedable champion shows up, stun them using a weapon or grenade and start the sprint. After the Tesseract buff shows up, heavy attack them twice to burst them down. When no big enemies are around, collect orbs with the Arc Weapon Surge buff and healing. Always sword guard to reduce damage, and use abilities when the sword is sewed. Rinse and repeat. I'm sorry that the addiction has gotten so bad, but this aspect is too good. I love experimenting with it, and I'm sure that I will find another use for it next season besides swords. I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, thank you for watching, and happy farming.